All right, welcome back, folks. Today we have Beate Chelette with us. She is known as the growth architect. And so we are going to be talking a little bit about everything: business, AI, strategy, resiliency. We're going to be talking about a lot of different things. Beate and I were just chatting here for, the last 15 minutes. And we were wondering which way to take this conversation, and it might go in a bunch of different directions, but I think it's number one, it's going to be fun. That's for sure. So Beate, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tony. I'm excited to be here. I can't wait to dive into all of this.
Yeah, so we connected, and you really your story resonated with me because we're both first generation Americans. And so why don't you give the viewers and the listeners a little background on you?
Yeah, so originally I'm from Germany, from the beautiful city of Munich, where people drink beer and eat pretzels and therefore are much happier than in other parts of the world. I always felt that Germany was not my place. And I had some, the career choices that I made back in Germany were all around creativity. And Germany is not known to be the most creative country in the world. And so it was a little challenging for me, but I was a photographer. I was then photo editor at Elle magazine in Germany. Everything was always around how do we take big ideas and then manifest them into images and then publish them and show the world the brilliance of creativity, really, and marketing and how do we sell these products. And then after Elle magazine, I immigrated to the United States. I lived in Key West on a houseboat, being a nanny for a couple months. And then I came finally to Los Angeles and met a wonderful man who had only two flaws. He was a pathological liar and an alcoholic. But by the time, Tony, I figured it out. I was already married, already had, given birth to a baby. And then it just, the whole disaster started. And then over the course of literally the next 10 years, I went through what I call my decade of bad luck. And it included fires, floods, riots, earthquakes, September 11th, a tsunami, for crying out loud, that killed one of my key vendors. And every time at every turn, I thought I was going to come up for air. Somebody stood there with a frying pan, not the nonstick frying pan, but the cast iron frying pans, and just whacked me over the head. And then eventually I find myself $135,000 in debt. I don't know how I'm going to get back up from this. I go to Germany drumming up some business. My dad has a stroke. My father did not have a stroke. My father had pancreatic cancer. My father dies within 6 weeks. And I'm literally at the grave in Germany, in Nether Bavaria, in front of this beautiful Baroque church overlooking the valley. I mean, it couldn't be any more picturesque. My phone rings and it's my office in Los Angeles telling me that we lost the house we were just saved. I served a notice. And in that moment, Tony, I fell on my knees. I raised my fist and I yelled at God. And I said, I don't know what the heck is going on here, but if you have a plan, this would be a very good time now to fill me in, because I've done everything. I don't know what else to do. And so I surrendered. And this is really an important part of the story, as we're going to talk about more today, why surrender is so important. And I said, fine, I'll look for a bankruptcy attorney, because at this point, if I go down in flames, everybody's going to say, yeah, she did everything she could. But then when I come back, I get a letter from the White House, from the President of the United States. Of course, the President of the United States never saw this letter, but it came from the White House, and the president sent me his best wishes. This letter put me in touch with a small business administration with a second in command that helped me restructure the business plan that I had written. And they helped me find a bank that restructured my $135,000 in a 10-year fixed loan. It was guaranteed by the SBA, freed up my line of credit. They gave me enough cash to get to break even. 3 months later, I'm break even. 18 months later, I'm the world leader in my category. That's when a Bill Gates company comes, knocks on my door and says, can you tell us how you do it? And I said, absolutely not.
Of course not.
Of course not. You want it?
That's right. You got to pay.
You got to pay. And they said, oh,
IP.
okay.
Yep.
Yeah, fine. How much do you want?
Yeah.
I said, a couple million. And they said, okay. And so 18 months after the worst moment of my life, I sold my business for millions of dollars to Bill Gates.
And there's a lot to unpack there. But I think this story resonates with a lot of viewers and a lot of listeners out there who, whether they're first generation Americans or second generations Americans, or even immigrants, right? Or, new to this country who came across the border legally and are looking to do great things. I mean, man, you were in a tough situation there, and you were able to, with some amount of help from others, you were able to figure it out, but you didn't throw in the towel, so to speak. You worked through it. And part of the biggest thing to your resiliency through all that is the fact that you had a business, you had an asset, you had something good that you could leverage, which is, today we want to talk a little bit about businesses and the importance of creating them and how to work through all that. Because a lot of folks out there, they have a W-2 job, which is okay. I never want to poo-poo that. But I think there's so much opportunity for folks to create their own business, be an entrepreneur out there, start something, work from home, right? A work from home business, an online store, something like that. Something. We have capital. We have knowledge within ourselves, between our ears, things we can do. You did it. I did it. We're first generation Americans. We're nothing special. We weren't born with a silver spoon in our mouth. Nobody gave us millions of dollars of venture capital to start what we did, right? We just did it from the ground up. So one of the things is, and prior to recording this, we spoke a little bit about, hey, we're looking into the windshield and there's a potential recession on our doorstep. I think that means both good and bad things for businesses. But I want to spread hope and opportunity. Help us understand, I think we can all understand how a recession is bad for business, but help us understand how a recession is potentially good for business. Can you walk us through that?
Yeah. So the most important thing that you need to know about potentially a recession is that your competitors already stopped. That's the single most important message. So if everybody else goes, oh, there's a recession because they believe the media and they stop working, well, there is your biggest opportunity out there, because people say, well, I'm going to preserve my cash. I'm going to not take any risks. I'm just going to play it safe. I'm going to stay at my job. I'm going to continue to do what I do. I'm not buying a new car. I'm going to make things work. I'm going to go more often to Costco. I'm going to go out less. So what you're basically doing is you're now training your brain in the scarcity principle. Yeah. So you are actually changing your mindset to one of fear and scarcity, which is the opposite of abundance and prosperity. Yeah. And you cannot be in both at the same time. So the fingers crossed hope for the best is not a mindset strategy that works. It's the opposite of that. So what I see a lot, Tony, and I don't know, what you see, but there is this just general belief that if somebody throws this out often enough, that it's bad, that it must be bad. But when I go into the BMW dealership, I still see people buying cars. I just see the salespeople not caring. A true story, my husband, he's in renewable energy. So he was driving hydrogen car, which I think is the unsexiest car on the planet. And so he wanted to think about whether he was going to buy a new hydrogen car or a Tesla. Now, the Tesla, in my opinion, now you can say whatever you want about Elon Musk, but it's a very sexy car. Mm-hmm. And the fuel cell car really isn't. And so we went into the dealership of Toyota that has this particular car. It was shocking to me. I mean, there was like no vibe. I mean, I felt like I was going in the grave. And the guy's like, well, let's face it, leasing doesn't make any sense. If you want to buy it. But, then you're only going to get this and that, they basically give you the car, but we don't know what's happening with hydrogen. Well, I like it. And I walked out and I said, we're not buying here. I said, everything about it makes me cringe. Yeah. And why? Because I could tell that they had no belief in their own product. Why would I buy something if I don't feel the confidence from someone? So that's, I think, the first check that I want to give to your listeners, Tony, to say, you got to keep your clean thinking under control. Because what is really true? People are going to the market. The restaurants are still full. Last time I checked, every restaurant had people waiting outside on a wait list. Yeah. People are still, paying for their Amazon boxes and their whatever other stuff there is. So what is really true? Well, what is true is that there's fear, and if it bleeds, it leads, and media exploits fear. Mm-hmm. So now, in order for you to find the opportunity in a recession, you have to shut this down. Another true story. So I was listening to, I have these apps, these news apps on my phone, and I had one that was called Flipboard. But now with AI, the news are just pathetic. I mean, pathetic.
Yeah.
So you can tell everything is written by it. So I deleted it. So I got another one called Smart News, even worse. So I did that for a couple of days. And then I literally said to myself, I cannot justify my time to be spent on such unbelievable nonsense. Why some 12-year-old girl in the UK had her left toe amputated because she accidentally stepped on a poisonous frog. So clean thinking is the single most important thing to finding opportunity, because if you for 1 second divert your attention away from opportunity, there isn't any.
Yeah, there's so much. Again, you just shared so much there. And so a couple of things I want to touch on is I want to come back to AI. So that's one of the things, but also recessions. Recessions don't impact everything equally. And I think that's one thing where sometimes people get paralyzed. Whether you already have a business or you're looking to start a business, I think you need to look at what that business is and be very strategic. I know you and I, we talk a lot about strategy and putting business systems in place and, scaling those businesses. I think you need to look at what particular business you're in facing into a potential recession. We don't know, right? Everything. You're right, Beate. I went out this weekend and there were cars all over the place. The roads were packed. I was like, people have money. People have money.
People
They're
have
still,
money. I mean, I live in Los Angeles, in Pacific Palisades. Let me just say, Tesla could save a lot of money to just not have any flashlights or turning signals. There's money everywhere. So it depends on where you put your attention. So you're absolutely correct. Where do you put your focus on and what do you allow your reality to be? There's a universal law that is the law of opposites. So you can only determine that it's dark because light exists.
Yeah.
So if it exists on the one side, it must exist on the other. So if poverty exists, wealth must exist. So if wealth must exist, poverty must exist, because it's all the law of polarity. So you have to think about this. What are you going to believe in? Because if you believe in poverty, you're going to be able to create a lot of it if you focus on that. Why not create on a lot of wealth instead?
Yeah. And so that's where, we got to be careful where our thinking is, because if we're hunkered down with fear and scarcity, we may be in the wrong camp. And we need to take a look at our business and our lives and say, okay, where does the abundance exist? Because on the other side of a scarcity, there is abundance. So we need to look at that and exploit it, right? We can't be shy about exploiting where there is abundance. And so where there is, where there might be a business to be had, or expand your business. So
I want to add, I want to jump on this here. So one of the things that is a reality, and it happens to me too. So the beginning of last year, we were crushing it. The beginning of the year, crickets. And you go, what the heck is going on? It's like everything just stopped. And then you have to go and you have to give yourself a reality check. And you have to say, well, if it all stopped the way it did, then was what I was doing the right thing to do anyway? Or was it just built on a temporary high? So I have talked to a lot of people that said, well, what was working is not working anymore. And I said, well, it can't, because the market conditions have significantly changed. AI made an entrance last November. Now look how much has changed. I mean, we didn't even use AI before November. Now what? I bet you will be like I do, not have a single day where you don't go to ChatGPT and have something rewritten, rephrased, reformulated, where I put 14 hours of a coaching session with a client and asked it to give me a launch plan for 6 months, and it pumped it out in 5 minutes. That would have taken me, that would have taken me 2 days to do this. So you have to go back and say, if what I did is not working now, then how do I need to adjust that to go back and work for the current market conditions? Because people's mental state have changed. People are worried about other things. They are fearful of other things. They're hopeful about other things. So that comes then to two things. Who is your avatar and what's your positioning statement? And if you do not look at these two things right now, you're in trouble, seriously in trouble.
Yeah, the avatar, I completely understand that. Just from the standpoint of trying to grow the business, if I'm advertising on social media and I'm hitting that wrong avatar, I'm just going to spin my wheels. So everybody needs to clearly understand that. If you don't, reach out to Beate. She'll be able to help you understand that. Same thing with the positioning statement. You got to figure that out. I want to touch back on the AI piece because I think that's so important these days. Um, there's a lot of concern out there. AI is going to be good or be bad. I think we all need to, as far as businesses, you just need to get out of that gudge and just use it for however you can use it to your benefit these days. AI is great in terms of taking some of the mundane tasks off your plate. Give it to AI, let AI do that in a matter of 5 minutes or less, right? Let that do that to free you up to do greater things, have different thought experiments, right? Have just a different level of where do you want to take your business. If you haven't created your avatar, ChatGPT might not be able to create your avatar. You might want to give that a little bit more of a personal touch, right? So leverage AI for good in your business so that you're now freed up as a business person, as an entrepreneur, to go off and do those critical tasks that only you can do. So that's my little soundbite on AI, because I think a lot of people maybe get a little scared of AI being a bad thing, but I see it for a business person. I think it's incredibly valuable in positioning AI in your business and how you use that to free up your own personal time and the time of your employees as well, right? I have several VAs and I know they're using AI. They need to use AI because they have other more important things that only they can do as a thinking, breathing human being that only we human beings can do and not AI.
Yes, I mean there's two things I believe about AI. So number one, given the history of mankind or humanity, there is not a question in my mind that it's going to be used for really bad things and that the bad guys or people that do this really horrible stuff in the deep fake era, or we've heard about guys replicating your child's voice and then you getting a phone call that your child has been kidnapped in the voice of your child, freaking out, trying to blackmail you. So there's no question in my mind that there is a dark side to AI that will be exploited. So you got to be very clear and cognizant about that. But AI is a child that's learning. So it needs not just the bad guys that put the stuff in it, the information so it can learn. It needs us to put the good stuff in it. So when you go in AI, say please, say thank you, and you use language that you would want your child to repeat back to you. There is, I'm listening to Scary Smart, which is a book about AI and the dangers, from the guy that ran the division at Google. And it is scary because it is much smarter than we are or will ever be, because it utilizes information in record time from so many different sources. But having said that, innovation cannot be stopped. So we have to make a choice as business owners or as people looking for opportunities to be independent and create our wealth, is to say, what am I responsible for? I'm not responsible for the bad guys doing what the bad guys do. I'm responsible for myself. I'm responsible for how I impact the people around me. And so if I lead by example, and one of the things that we do as a company, we are an impact-driven company, Tony, and we have that in our mission statement, that our impact is measured by the impact we help others make. So I want everybody on my team to understand that unless we help other people to make their impact, we are not doing our job. So if you come at it from this perspective of being so clear about what you're doing it for, now it becomes much clearer, because then you say, well, how am I going to be using this tool? And then how I'm going to tell others I'm using this tool and inspire other people to do good versus the opposite of it. And if there is more good, that's the only chance we have, in the perpetual fight of good and evil. If there's more good than evil, then good will prevail. So where are you going to be at?
Yeah, we hear a lot of negativity in the news and from the media and from the politicians. And so we want to, you and we do a good job focusing on us, make sure we don't get polarized in any particular way. We do podcasts like this to help other people and other business owners do the same thing, make sure we're all calibrated what we need to do for our businesses. So we spoke about, the potential of a recession. Where do you lie? We spoke a lot about adding resiliency to our businesses and our lives through this mindset of abundance versus scarcity. We spoke about making sure you know your avatar. We spoke about AI a couple of different ways. I love this idea of, this self-awareness within your business and this impact statement that you create. If you're not having a positive impact on those that you serve, I think you got to reevaluate where you are. Some of the other things that are coming up quite frequently in terms of adding resiliency to a business is things like business systems. And
did you just say the word systems?
yeah.
I am melting. I'm melting with joy and pride.
Excellent. No, this is good. So we're going to talk about business systems, and we're going to talk about scaling next.
Gosh, you had me at the S word. Yes.
No, because it's super important. We always go there. And again, I hope for the viewers and the listeners, this serves as, you probably heard about all these things, and that's great, but it's reinforcement. Have you thought about AI and how you're using it today? You got to think about that. Are you thinking about your impact statement? If not, you got to think about that. If you haven't thought about your avatar, you got to think about that. All these things are not like, Beate and I aren't creating like new revolutionary stuff here. This is stuff that's been out there for a long, long time. And all we're trying to do is help, remind folks of things they should be looking at. And the same thing with business systems and with scaling your business, right? So let's get into those two.
My favorite. So one of the things I want to really debunk right away is that anything that's around systems and strategies and scaling is awful and boring and treacherous and miserable, because it really isn't. I think there's a lot of creativity in building systems and strategies and coming up with a plan to scale. So the way I want your listeners, Tony, to imagine that is that the first part is you have to have the goal, which we were talking about. Where do you want to go to? What does this even look like? I was starting to coach a group last week, and I looked at one of the members and I said to her, and I know she's single, I said, well, what does that goal look like? I mean, are you in a relationship? Do you want love in your life? What does this look like for you? And she says, I've not even ever thought about it. I said, how can you build a business model if you don't know what you want for yourself? Because that determines how I'm going to build it. And then the other guy says, well, should I get EOS implemented, KPIs, and should I get my employees and accountability? I said, you are in a passion-driven business where people go and work for you because they want to help other people to be fit. Do you really think if you already have a high attrition rate right now and now you terrorize them with KPIs without feeling the passion first, that they're going to stay? I said, it's not happening. I said, so the question is, why don't you fuel the passion? I said, you have a culture issue, not a KPI issue. So it goes really back to the essence of what is it that you want? Do you want to run a company where you're a drill sergeant and everybody has to report their KPIs in the morning, or you want people that go and said, man, we changed 10 lives today and we're going to change 20 tomorrow. And by the end of the month, we're going to have 1,000 people that tell another 1,000 people on how much fun they're having and fitness was never be better. Doesn't that sound so much more exciting than KPIs? How many sales did you close today? It's the same thing. It's just a reframe. Yeah. So number one, you got to get clear on where you want to go and what that looks like. Then, and only then, can we determine the strategy. So the strategy is like when we go to New York or Paris or London, God forbid London with the tube that's like 500 kilometers down in the ground, right? But you always look at those two spots. Where am I and where do I want to go? You have these two spots, you literally can map it out. I mean, it's a universal principle. We know where Mars is, we know where Earth is. So we know if we want to go to Mars that we need to map out the path to get there. I mean, it's no brain surgery, like you said earlier. Yeah. That's a strategy. So if you're in London and you, like me, really don't like the idea of being underground that much, you go, what's my alternative? I can take a taxi. I can take a double-decker bus. I can walk. I can do a combination out of all of these different things. Maybe I want to walk through Hyde Park to come out on the other side. So you really have options on how you're going to get there, on whether you want to get there the fastest, you want to have the best experience, whatever that is. That's the strategy. So the strategy has a lot of variations that are possible for you, which is why you and I love what we do, because we can build a strategy in 1 million different ways.
Yeah.
No problem.
for the viewers and the listeners out there, you don't need to have all the answers, right? Sometimes
No.
business owners and entrepreneurs, they feel like, oh, it's my business. I gotta, it's my baby, which I totally get. I'm never looking to overtake their baby and what they're doing. That's not my role in life. But I do, and I know you do, seek to be the guide, the Sherpa, to help people along. Right. There's so many, like you say, if you're in London and you don't want to take the tube, but you don't know how to get from point A to point B. Like if I was in London, I wouldn't know. But what would I do? I would ask somebody who lives there, who has experience, who's already done it. How do I get from point A to point B without taking the tube? Somebody will tell me, right? And I think as business owners and entrepreneurs, we need to lean on others. I certainly do. I am not the smartest one in the room, 99.999% of the time.
Well,
So,
and think about it this way also, Tony. Have you ever visited a funeral or celebration of life or a tombstone of anybody where somebody says his best trait in life was he did everything by himself?
yeah, yeah,
Because if
boring.
that would be
Yeah,
true, nobody would be there.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's not, at least for me, I will say, it's not as much fun. If you're just,
It's dreadful.
it is, it
It's
really is.
dreadful. It's like here's a know-it-all who never believed anybody could contribute anything, knew anything better. Here's the total narcissist where it was always about him or her. Everything had to be done exactly the way they thought it needed to be done,
Yeah.
even though they were not the subject matter expertise and everything. I mean, come on, people. What's that sound like? That sounds like the worst possible person to be around.
Yeah.
So there is no medal at the end of this for doing it all by yourself. There really isn't. It's time or money. It depends on what you value more. You pay either way.
Yeah. Yep. Now, in terms of, do you have any, I'll put you on the spot a little bit, do you have like any like golden rules in terms of scaling, like how to scale, when to scale, should you scale? Some of this is kind of like a personal preference kind of thing sometimes. But what are your thoughts on scaling? I mean,
I love scaling. So the rule of thumb is, in my experience, any entrepreneur business owner can take it to about 1 million pretty much by themselves with some assistance and, and some stuff set up. That is the burnout formula. You get over 1 million and you don't start scaling, you will, within a short amount of time, either blow up your health, blow up your relationship, or blow up your business. That's the rule. That's what I've seen this over and over and over and over again. And that is what happens is when you get to a certain point, you keep opening so many loops in your brain that you then cannot start to close the loops because no thought is finished, no project is finished because there's so many of them. And because there's so many open, that is what's burnout, is that you cannot close any loops because everything now sits open, then you can't make any more decisions. And then you start looping and looping and looping on more loops. And that's it. That's the beginning of the end. I recommend everybody to really be very cognizant of that. The only way for you to sell a business is to have systems in place. And that means you can scale it. So the way I want you all to envision it is that over the course of your professional career, you have skill sets that sometimes seem that they're not related. So you could, sometimes with consultants, they can help with the leadership development, but they can also create the strategy. I'm sure you do some of the same. I'm sure sometimes you look at the person that seeks your coaching and you say, dude, you need a little help with the way you treat your people. Give me some pointers here. So what's that? HR executive coaching, but that's not what you are. So you are a strategic consultant because you help them to create wealth. So wait, so how is this in direct competition with? So which one are you? Are you helping people with executive coaching or are you helping them with business development? When that happens, you want to find the umbrella that sits over it. That's why we created the growth architect. So the growth architect says, we architect your growth in the categories of strategy, system, and authority building, because these are the 3 elements that need to be in place for you to actually be successful. So now you have your umbrella system. Now you take a look at the umbrella system and you say, if everything I do under that creates a transformation journey, which it always does. I mean, it just does. So your system then would be, how do I help people figure? And I'm riffing here, Tony.
Yeah.
I help you first what you want. Then we look at your available resources, finances, contacts. We see how much money you can get for making the investments. Then we're looking at building your team. And then I'm going to take a look at you on who you need to be to run this show perfectly. So let's say now we have an umbrella with 4 different segments. So now when somebody comes to you and says, Tony, how do I do this? Then you say, well, allow me to apply my system. Let me find out where you are first. And then the guy knows what he wants, but he now needs to look in how much money he has available so he can buy the first property. Now you know exactly where to start. If you now have these 4 pillars of the system under this one umbrella, you can bring other people in that manage these pieces, because then you can say, now in your, in our method, you move from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. You already got 1. Congratulations. Good job. You're in 2. The minute you're done with 2, you come to, you go to so-and-so, and then we'll do that there. And then when you come to 4, you come to me personally, because then I'm going to show you on how you need to show up, lead, make the bigger deals, do all that stuff. And the client is going to be happy. That's the key to scaling, is to get this out of your head, that your intuitive way of doing things, that is a formula that needs to be formulaized or methodized or systematized. And that then needs to go in the hands of different people that take over certain parts. That's the only way to scale.
No, you're so right, because I think, some, not all, I don't want to paint with a broad brush. Some business owners, entrepreneurs, or folks in real estate, they feel like they got to do it all. They got to know every single aspect, and you can't scale that way if you're going to hold everything so close and to the vest and want to be the expert in every aspect of it. I share with folks, there's CPAs who go to school for real estate for 4 years. Do you want to put your real estate investment future on hold for 4 years while you go to school for 4 years to become a CPA to learn how to do that? No, just
hire someone who's done it.
Exactly. And so that's what, the message I want to send to, again, to the audience, to the viewers and listeners is, seek out those people, seek out the Beate or myself or other coaches. Doesn't have to be us. This isn't self-promotion or anything like that. Seek out others, coaches, or consultants or businesses that are there to help you grow, help you scale, help you put those business systems in place. Chances are you are not the expert, just like I am not the expert in business systems. That's why I have people around me to help me with that sort of stuff. So otherwise I can't do what I do, just solely on my own. It's not like I'm going to go write the software code to create a business system. I'm going to go find the right one that works for me.
Yeah, and please don't build your own websites, and please don't please don't code things. It's that the power of success comes from understanding the most valuable tool you have is your time, and to put the appropriate value on your time.
Yeah.
And when you give your time the appropriate value, then you know what you need to do and what you need to outsource. So sometimes I catch myself because I think, well, I can just go on my website and fix something. Now I will do that deliberately if I'm changing language, because I want to tell the story on my website. So I do have to look at this from page to page to page. And when I worked with ChatGPT to take a look again on how the flow goes, that does involve me to that extent of the language. But then what needs to be done design wise or with the code or the opt-in forms, that I don't do, that goes in a project management software, even if it's 10 o'clock at night or 5 o'clock in the morning, or I had an idea on a Saturday and it gets captured in the project management software, it gets assigned to the team, and then it's out of my head. That's how I keep closing my loops in my head, so that I don't have to run around with 50 things to remember or 200 things to remember because it's written down. That's the other thing Tony, and I want you to tell your audience on how you do this as well, because I think it's important to get viewpoints on this. Getting the information out of your head, organized in a project management software, is the key to everything, in my opinion. What do you do?
So right now, I'm heavily using my VA to control and organize those priorities and those action items. So for me, whenever I have a thought, because if I'm not steering the ship, if I'm not the one who's having the bigger level thought as to what's going on in the world and where we need to invest and what we need to do in our lives, if I'm not the one having the freedom of mind space to be able to do that, if I'm not doing it, nobody on my team is doing it. And that's not to knock them. They're all very good in their own right. but I just offload those, whether it's a quick text or a quick email. I just offload those to my executive assistant. She funnels that into the system, and then she prioritizes that, and she keeps track of those, and it's out of my head.
Yeah. So, again, let's just make this a quick learning lesson. So you see now the two different types we are, because I love the systems and the strategy. So nobody will take this away from me because I happen to love this. So when this comes and I build these workflows, and now we had actually a business idea out of this because I do these workflows. So I'm actually teaming up with a VA company to take my workflows and teach their VAs and then sell it as ready to go programs, right? I mean, why didn't I think about this earlier? So my specialty is to take this. How do we promote podcasts to build authority? So we're launching a podcast platform booster on how to take for podcast hosts to take their content and turn it into 120 touch points per month, because I already have the workflow. So I'm like, well, why don't I team up with a VA company and teach them my system, and then they can teach their VAs, and then we can have other people benefit from something that I've done. So that's my specialty. Your specialty is that you say, I need to be a thought leader. I need somebody who, I need to stay at 30,000 feet, and we do in-flight refueling, and then that plane lands again and then needs to restock and, refuel. I need to keep flying all the time.
Yeah.
So with that clarity about the type of leader you are or the type of business you're running, now you can build the systems and the strategies and the team that supports that particular thing. But you don't need to feel better or worse than I do about what I do, nor do I feel better or worse about how I do it than you do.
Yeah. Yeah.
I simply recognize that's how you do it. That's it.
Yeah.
There's no judgment.
That's it. I love it. I love it. This is man, we spoke about so many different things today.
Yeah. Good luck with the show notes.
Yeah, I know. And also how to title this one. But I think we started with a little bit of how to recession proof your business. We need to really have clarity around our thoughts and think about only those things that we actually have control of, right?
Yeah. And I'm going to add just one more thing because I'm on a roll now. So
yeah, you
one
are.
of the things, I just get so many downloads. It's ridiculous. So one of the things I also really encourage everybody in the thought process and the clarity, make it something you can be passionate about. So if I want to join a particular organization that has a revenue goal, then instead of saying, I need to make $1 million or I need to make $5 million, think about what it feels like to be part of that organization. How you're sitting there at the dinner when everybody comes and shakes your hand and says, great job. Wow, we're so excited for you to be here. What a wonderful, wonderful business you have. Can't wait to learn more, clapping on your shoulder, toasting with a champagne. Create an image of what that feels like to have achieved that goal. That's going to get you there much faster than just the number. That's why we impact driven and not number driven. I think ultimately, really, it's the same thing, but it just does something in the brains, Tony. I don't know. In real estate, my property that's now rented in Los Angeles that I thankfully bought in the greatest, hot spot in Los Angeles, that since I've bought it has now gone up 150% in value.
Nice.
That I'm making a ridiculous amount of money in rent, like 3 times what I pay now to maintain this. To think about what that does and how that feels to have made such a good decision and have somebody live there now that enjoys the property, that can walk everywhere, the income that I'm creating so I can pay the house off sooner or maybe buy another property. I probably should do the latter. If I think about that versus just the money in the bank, I will be more successful.
This has a snowball effect, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's real estate or your own business, and you start to generate income, and now it becomes a little more of, you have more freedom of thought because you have good business systems around you, you have a good team around you. So now you have more freedom there, clarity of thought. You start making more money, good money, right? You push past this, you have $1 million business and you're hunkering down, doing it all yourself. It feels very much all on your shoulders, but you're able to break through that ceiling by, accessing folks like you to be able to help them with that thought process. Right now, you have more freedom, you have more clarity of thought. There's such a snowball. I can share with folks from my own perspective. There's such, and it sounds like you can as well, such a snowball effect if you can push past some of these barriers, some of these, things that are weighing you down, if you can push past them, there's just such an abundance on the other side. You just need to allow yourself to access them. For the viewers and for the listeners, I know sometimes that's a tough thing because there's uncertainty on the other side. Geez, I'm going to spend money for this. Am I really going to derive some benefit? Da, da, da. I understand there's uncertainty on the other side, but there's a lot of folks who have been there, done it, and let me tell you, the other side's pretty sweet. So
The other side is very sweet, but it's work. I mean, Tony, I'm going to ask you this on behalf of your audience. Do you still do mindset work?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Let me guess, every day.
Every day. It's there is so for me, and I will share a little behind the scenes. To do what I do, I have to look at what's happening in the media today. I have to look at what the politicians are talking about. I have to see what the Federal Reserve is doing. And you can imagine how negative, how draining looking at that media and what they are doing to our society and to our great nation, that can be very negative and actually take me to a very dark place. And for me, it's almost like I need to find a way to have a switch, because if I go from that place of being very negative into a coaching call and I'm a very negative person, that coaching call doesn't go well, nor do they deserve that negativity. So I need to find a way to get my head out of that negativity and understand it's and compartmentalize it for what it is. That's just learning for me to understand where the future is going and where the opportunities are and where, like we were talking about, where the abundance is. I look at real estate quite a bit, where money is flowing and where it's not. And so I look for where that abundance is. And so, yeah, every day is a mindset check for me because I have to.
Yes, I'm the same way, and I can tell the difference if I'm staying diligent with it and if I'm
Yeah.
not. So sometimes the objective really is, with the limited amount of time you have available, what are you going to allow to enter your brain and your thought process? Now, I will say this in full disclosure, I do like my Dateline and my crime shows and things like that. Because I find it very gratifying when the bad guys get caught and the world is in order. But I'm very clear about how much time or energy I put into this. And I know that I sometimes just need that to relax because I can get very intense and focused. Yeah. So I don't need to focus on anything because I know the bad guy typically gets caught. So that's good. And if everything explodes in the end, even better. So just be real with yourself about, is this good for me? Is this what I want to end my day with? Is this the routine I want to have? Because when you look at people who are very successful and ultra rich and ultra successful, they have mastered their mindset. So that's where everybody should start today. And while I'm at it, I just want to tell everybody, please, wherever you pick up this podcast, go there now and give Tony a 5-star review with a little comment, because that's what gets the algorithm up and we can share this message with more people. It is a labor of love. So share it with one other person that needs to hear what we talked about today.
I so appreciate that, Beate, because we don't get paid for this. We do this out of the kindness of our heart to help people out there in some way, shape, form, or another, to do better, to have a better life, have a better business, whatever. It's out of the goodness of our hearts we do this. We're not making any money. Or at least I should say, from my perspective, I'm not making any money doing YouTube videos. It's just to educate and help people. So Beate Chelette, I love that. I love that name. Beate Chelette. She is known as the growth architect. And so, Beate, where can folks find you?
Yes. So if you are interested in finding out more, so the first thing I would encourage you to do is take our free quiz. That is the Growth Blocker quiz. You go to growthblockerquiz.com to find out what your number one business growth blocker is. It takes only 2 minutes and it's free. If you have heard about us talking about the avatar, go ahead and find our Airtight Avatar, airtightavatar.com. And I really encourage everybody to go to that and say, let me just redo my avatar and see who the person is I'm even selling to, because only if you know who you're selling to and what their problems are, can you create an offer that solves that problem and that makes your offer irresistible. And if you want to talk to my team, just go to uncoversession.com. Make sure you mention this show and say that you're coming from, that Tony sent you, so you get priority in the queue, and schedule a complimentary 15-minute uncovery session.
That's great. Excellent. Beate, we spoke about so many great things here today. I'm grateful for you. Thank you so much for your time here today. And folks, if you're listening, if you're watching, whatever, go seek out Beate. She's a wealth of information. She's known as the growth architect for a reason. So go seek her out. Beate, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.